Hello everyone. This is just my update on where I'm at currently with my project, and I hope it's sufficient. But yeah, let's get into it. So, my project is currently titled Dividing Lines, The Lasting Impact of Sudanese Calligraphic Modernism, which is a modern art movement, as is implied by the name, but I'll proceed here. So some of my main questions are, how did Sudanese calligraphic modernism play a role in shaping a decolonized national identity for Sudan after becoming independent from the United Kingdom in 1956? I didn't note it there, but they were also under the colonial rule of Egypt at the time, but that'll be more relevant later. And then another question was, how did the movement change from its beginning in approximately 1952, which does precede their independence, but it was kind of beginning just with certain artists, particularly the one I mentioned here, Osman Wakiala. His piece, The Tormented Mystic, is often associated with the beginning of this movement. Anyway, it does essentially end in 1989, as indicated there. It's kind of hard to draw a hard line for that, but that essentially seems to be when it was over, if you can say that. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. So the last question is just what are the lasting impacts of this movement on present-day Sudan and South Sudan? Because it does reflect a lot of the, just how they kind of are currently, geographically speaking. Some of those, I guess, tensions, if you were already starting to rise at this time, if you will. I think a lot of people did want them to be separate nations, and it was just kind of a difficult battle for a long time. Oh, and then the piece to the side is Ibrahim El-Salahi's The Last Sound, which is a very notable work of this movement, and I definitely think I'll be featuring it in my final presentation, if you will. So as for my schedule, I will be quite busy in June, given that I will be in Rome, but I do intend to finish reading all my remaining articles and chapters as I can access them online, as well as the book 7 Stories About Modern Art in Africa, as I can also access that online. And then I want to get a start on both the draft of my report and final presentation if I can. It's a little difficult to do that without having read all my sources, but I don't want to get behind. In July, I'm going to finish all the books I couldn't take with me, and I want to further flesh out my working draft and final presentation, and hopefully get them finished. So I have been reading a little bit of scholarship so far. I've read 2 articles and 3 books as shown to the left. These sources have been helping me discern some answers to some of the questions I mentioned earlier. I still feel like my takes are a bit more shallow than I'd like them to be, but I do feel like I'm making progress. With that said, I've met with my mentor twice, and I will be again relatively soon. Just trying to stay on top of things, if you will. And then overall, I've been researching this movement, of course, as well as the history of Sudan overall from this particular time period, and also some other nations that were going through similar things at similar times, in the 50s to the late 80s, essentially. In fact, there were actually other calligraphic modernism movements contemporary to this one that I didn't know about until now, which has been really interesting to look into, because there's a lot of variation between, like some of them are Arabic as well, but a lot of them use other languages with different characters, and, it all just has, different regional qualities that I think is really interesting, and I'd like to look more into if I have the time. But anyway, so this week, I'll be reading the articles Subjects to Control, Post-War Return Migration and State Building in 1970s South Sudan, and Political History of Southern Sudan Before Independence of the Sudan, which I'm not really sure about the why it's phrased like that there, but the article overall does seem to be informative. From there, I'll be further analyzing how the geography of these 2 nations impact the themes that these artists consistently depict. And from there, I'll continue to focus my research on 3 major artists within the movement, one being Wakiala, another being El-Salahi, and the last being Shibrain, or Shibrain, I believe it's pronounced. I've read the least scholarship on him, if it shows any, but I do think he was a notable figure as he helped found the Khartoum School of Fine Arts. anyway, from there, I'll just be trying to organize and, further flesh out my notes as well. It's difficult for me to really, identify what skills I'm developing, if you will, just because it's kind of something that happens organically, I feel like. But I do believe that I'm improving my analytical skills as I've been taking more time and having more resources and looking further into what I'm studying than I do otherwise sometimes. I do think I'm staying on top of things with my organization and time management. I've never been good at it, so doing slightly better than average for my standards does feel like an improvement, but I don't know, it's a bit of a stretch, I suppose. I do think I've been getting more confident in my research. I'm definitely very excited to actually put it together, because I really want to convey, what I'm gaining, out of this, knowledge-wise, if you will, but I feel like I'm still so incoherent, but regardless, I do think I'm making steady progress, and I do have strong hopes for how this ends up, if you will. And then as for problem solving, I think that's been going well, so I may be developing skills in that area. Sorry, a little hard for me to discuss. Anyway. So this whole project has been really stimulating, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint specific things, but I've really enjoyed exploring the ways modern art has been used as a tool to increase individual and communal freedoms, as that's just something I've noticed through a lot of different modern art movements, and really digging into one, can be very insightful. It also has been very interesting to see how many regions had their own variants of this movement, as I was kind of mentioning earlier. And I don't know, I think I would like to look into some of those a little more as well. For this project, it would probably be some, also Arabic countries. I probably wouldn't go too far out, I guess, if I was really trying to use anything as an example, because I do want to keep it as relevant as possible. But I wasn't aware of this, and so I am quite curious about the extent of that. Anyway, there also has been a lot that has been challenging and frustrating, but that's kind of how most projects I've taken on have been. One of the big reasons just being that it takes me a really long time to process things, especially, reading is one thing, but actually retaining and understanding things always takes me multiple passes. And I felt ashamed about that before, but I don't think it's the worst thing, and I do think I might be getting quicker about these things, but I don't know, it can make things a little rough. I feel like I haven't gotten as far as I would have liked to by this point. And I guess that's my biggest gripe right now. But aside from that, I have been having a little issue with being confident enough to actually start the draft. I just feel like I don't have a full, comprehensive outline idea, if you will. And if the outline doesn't work, then I'd have to restart anyway. So I've been kind of conflicted about that. But it is kind of my instinct to try and just make one anyway, so I should actually probably have that drafted up soon, even if it doesn't end up being what I go with later. Anyway, for this, I generally just wish there were more sources, in English particularly, and there's a decent amount on El-Salahi, pretty fair amount, if you will, but Ahmed Shibrain and Osman Wakiala are both lacking quite a bit of English documentation, and I couldn't find many primary sources for either of them, if you will, things they wrote directly in their lifetimes. Although there is a book that I've started to read with some of El-Salahi's actual letters and just things he was writing at the time alongside his work, and that has been really interesting. That's a really good source. Oh, and then outside of that, I would be interested in, just more sources that directly compare the events from Sudanese calligraphic modernism with other contemporary, calligraphic modernism movements, because they did all sort of occur at the same time, beginning post-World War II in the 50s, probably because, there were a lot of decolonizing nations, but I wonder why so many people were gravitating towards typology in arts at the time, if you will, because that was kind of a general theme. I was reading in another book about abstract art, global abstract art, it's called. And I don't know, I'm kind of curious about why at this specific time that was so, like, something so many people were gravitating towards, but yeah, I hope to look into that more in the future. Um, oh heck, I thought I had an end slide, but I guess to conclude, I'm not quite where I want to be yet with this project, but I do think I'm making decent strides. I hope to get into gear quite a bit more after I come back, although I do want to, just stay on top of things while I'm here as well. I'm really looking forward to putting things in a bit of a chronological order, if you will, because my notes so far, one of my biggest issues with them is that I haven't really been making sorry, I don't really know how to phrase this. Like, I haven't been ordering them in a way that I find satisfying. So that's one of my biggest goals coming up here. But yeah, with that said, thank you for listening, and I hope this is an adequate presentation. I wasn't really sure how I should go about this, just because, I don't know, I wasn't sure what the end result should really look like, so I hope this is decent and informative. All right. All right, thank you.